You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
1 week remains between those of you tuned into this podcast and people reporting to their professional jobs playing baseball at various locales in the Sunshine State and the Grand Canyon State. Is that right? Florida, the Sunshine State? Yeah, Florida's the Sunshine State. I was distracted for a second because I just remembered the line from Old School where Luke Wilson says, California, the Sunshine State. Isn't that what he said? Isn't it called California? I don't know.
I don't know. Old School was the first R-rated movie I ever saw.
Really?
Yeah, and I think I was too embarrassed that I was actually getting away with watching that movie that I remember most of its lines. So
just making 15-year-old movie jokes, and it was Sam's first R-rated.
Topical humor.
Topical humor here on the Minor League Baseball podcast, as it always is. And hey, hi everybody, welcome in. It is this week's edition of the Show Before the Show podcast from MILB.com. I am Tyler Mon, and he is Sam Dykstra, and we're recording this on February 8th, which means less than a week from now, there will be a whole lot of work going on in Florida and Arizona as pitchers and catchers are already reporting and are set to have their mandatory report days next week, which will be followed by pitchers and catchers workouts and then first full squad workouts coming up a little bit later on in the month. And the first games of spring training get started later on this month, like the 26th of February, I think is the first couple of days. I mean, this
sounds about right.
We're so close. We're so close. This is episode number 96, by the way. And hi, and welcome. Hi, Sam.
Hi. Yeah, is there anything that's like more optimistic?
No.
In terms of a 3-word phrase than pitchers and catchers?
No.
Because like it's not even a sentence that you need to like complete.
No, not at all.
Pitchers and catchers report. Like, we don't talk about pitchers and catchers during the regular season in terms of groups. We only talk about them in that group now.
Yeah.
At least that phrase. So it's just that it feels so good in the mouth. It's got that good like mouth feel to it for a phrase. It's so optimistic. I think that in opening day like makes me feel sunnier than any other phrase in the English language. So yeah, the fact that we're getting that right now is a lot of fun. And one thing I've kind of noticed, I don't know if this is like league wide or just, the people I've talked to, it seems like a lot more guys are reporting early than have in years past.
Yeah.
I know it's typically a thing for major league guys to show up a little early and that kind of thing, but I've talked to a lot of minor leaguers who are saying, I'm already down here, or the Yankees had like captain's camp. So I know James Caprillion did that last year. There were a couple other guys. Justice Sheffield talked about that last week on the podcast. So it seems like as much as we like to think is pitchers and catchers day is the day everybody just kind of rolls in, that's getting pushed further and further up.
It really is the best. It's the, and it brings you out of like the doldrums of winter, and it just makes you feel like things are going to be okay. So that's happy. It's happy thoughts. It's good. It's a good thing. There. We're talking about something that'll come up later on in the podcast, but there was a calm and soothing voice that you'll hear 2 segments from now, a full discussion of. But this episode is episode number 96 of the Show Before the Show podcast, and wherever you found us, we thank you for tuning in. You can find this show at MILB.com/podcast. That's where we have all of our past episodes. You can also find those on iTunes and the Stitcher app, as well as pretty much everywhere else you can find podcasts, and you can rate and review and subscribe to us there. And we will kick off this week's edition of the show the way we do every other week with 3 strikes as we get things started for the final real full week of the offseason. And in that, we'll look toward the season. Strike one, Sam. One prospect on your mind who is not right now in the discussion of upper echelon guys on Major League farm systems, but could be on a Major League roster to start 2017. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, so I didn't want to do when I kind of put this question together and sent it to you, Tyler, I didn't want to do it in terms of, the guys are on the 40-man. They're automatically invited. We've talked so much on the site about guys who get non-roster invites, those kind of things. And every year there's a guy or two that kind of surprises you. I remember Jackie Bradley Jr. did this probably a little bit before his time with the Red Sox a couple of years ago. Obviously, it worked out okay. He's a really good center fielder now, but at the time he had a really good spring, and everybody began to think maybe he's ready now. They pushed him despite being a non-roster guy. So that's kind of who we're talking about here. And my pick, I don't want to call him under the radar. He was a first-round pick last year. He was the 26th overall pick by the Chicago White Sox. But Zach Beede, we so much has happened this offseason with the White Sox farm system, notably adding, massive names like Yohan Moncada, Lucas Giolito, Reynaldo Lopez, Michael Kopech. Alex Kraft, our colleague, did a story this week about what the White Sox have added in terms of arms. And I think even before that, Beede, they took him so high last year coming out of Louisville, college arm. He's always going to be a reliever. There's no doubt about that. You might know his brother Nick, who's in the Twin system. Both of them throw really, really hard. Zach, can hit triple digits when he wants. It's usually we're talking about high 90s, but he's got that velocity. He's got a really good slider and above average changeup. Already has that package of pitches. And the White Sox did not hold him back last year. I mean, he pitched in the AZL, the Carolina League, the Southern League, and the AAA International League, where he ended his year. He got 38 innings under his belt, which doesn't sound like a lot, but even for a college arm, that's a pretty good amount for a reliever. So they're not exactly worried about pushing him too hard. He's probably going to start, if I was a betting man, I'm not telling you he's definitely going to be with the White Sox on day one. But he has the stuff right now to the point where I think he could compete at a major league level. I think the White Sox believe that as well. He got a non-roster invite, so he's not going to be put on the 40-man already. But also, when we talk about guys getting called up for opening day, we had this talk a couple of years ago with Chris Bryant, and it comes up every year. Service time is a real issue with these guys. How long you're going to be able to hold off arbitration, how long you're going to be able to hold off free agency. With Beede being a reliever, I don't feel like that's as big a concern necessarily as it would be with some of these other guys, your starting pitchers, your everyday position players. So if he really impresses this spring, I wouldn't be surprised the White Sox, especially if they, wheel and deal a little more. Closer Daniel Robertson has been in the news lately about trade rumors involving him, maybe going to the Nationals or any other team that needs bullpen help. If they carve out another spot in their bullpen, given the way we're not exactly expecting them to compete, maybe they decide to throw Beede in the deep water, see if he can swim. The one knock I would have against him now, he had solid control at Louisville, kind of struggled with that at the higher levels last year. He walked 20 guys in 32 innings between AA Birmingham and AAA Charlotte. So that's not exactly where you want it to be, in the minors. Again, that was the end of a long season. I don't think the White Sox are overly concerned about it yet. If he can show that the command and the control are fine, I would not be surprised to see them push him very quickly, potentially with an opening day spot, with the situation they're in. I'm not saying it's going to happen, anything like that, but he's a guy I would kind of point to. He's in the right system, in the right situation, the right type of player to make that kind of thing happen.
I like it. I think it's a good call. I think, one of the things that we've discussed a lot on the podcast is just how quickly guys in bullpen roles can rise through the minor leagues, crack the major league level, thrive there. Because like you said, it's just a different ball game than if you're worried about the arbitration requirements of a position player or somebody who is playing a much different role on a roster. And we've seen it for guys who have rocketed through the major league, through the minor leagues rather. The guy who really comes to mind for me always in that regard is Chris Sale, who spent like 4 minutes in the minors and then all of a sudden was up at the major league level. Because when you pitch at a high level at the prep ranks, collegiately, and then you get into the minors, there are, for a handful of guys, there are only certain indicators that a major league organization needs to see before they know, all right, this guy's ready. And if a major league club feels like a reliever especially can contribute, especially now with the way that bullpens and pitching staffs are managed, guys can make that climb pretty quickly. One guy that I'm really interested to keep an eye on in 2017, I'm not sure if he's going to make a major league opening day roster because he's a non-roster invitee to camp, but the Detroit Tigers have a relief prospect named Joe Jimenez, who last year rocketed through a handful of stops in the minors. He started at Double-A Erie, made it up, actually started at Class A Advanced Lakeland, made the majority of his appearances at Double-A Erie, and then made the final stage of his 2016 season with Triple-A Toledo. Combined in those stops, 55 appearances, a 1.51 ERA, 78 strikeouts, and 53 2/3. Now, I know that there are some people who are kind of off of the bandwagon with him just because the numbers maybe seem a little bit like they're inflated over what the stuff suggests he's capable of doing. But again, a system right now that is in some flux. The Tigers are in a division where it seems like they've missed their window. I mean, the Tigers had that mid to late 2000s window that looks like it closed just because of the competitive level of that division right now. Joe Jimenez, and I know that the early indication is that he'll be at Toledo to start the year, but if that's a guy who goes out and just rockets through spring training, maybe he's in that conversation. And again, the same type of thing. He's been tested in pressure situations. He made 30 saves out of 31 chances last year between those three stops. For his minor league career, 52 of 57 in save opportunities. So he's had those high leverage chances to show off what he's got. I think people will probably knock him for a while, but he's shown really there isn't a lot left to prove except the consistency of being able to do it. Because when you do it for one season, yeah, that's great. And he had a breakout 2016, but oftentimes that's not quite enough to go on. I think he could be in that conversation. Obviously, the roster things are a little bit more complicated with someone in his situation. But I think even if he doesn't end up on a major league roster to start the season, I think he'll be in Detroit in pretty short order.
Yeah, and like you said, in that situation, it's kind of interesting just because kind of the opposite from the White Sox in that I think the Tigers are the solid number 2 team right now in terms of that AL Central. I mean, it's the Indians, spacebar, then the Tigers. But if the Tigers are hoping to get a couple breaks their way, they might need all hands on deck. They might need their best arms up as quick as they can get them. Jimenez is definitely their best relief arm. He might be their best arm in the system, flat period. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to squeeze as much as they can out of him if they are going to try to keep pace with the Indians and bring him up. Just another point on Beede. I like the point you did make. You brought up Chris Sale earlier. The White Sox do have a history of this kind of thing. I mean, Chris Sale was up very quickly after he got drafted. Carlos Rodon was up in his first full season.
Yeah, he was the other one.
Carson Fulmer last year, with middling success, and we still don't know what his role is going to be going forward, whether they really want him to be a starter, but is he a future reliever? That'll play itself out this year. But if there is a team that is going to bring up a college arm when they know he is ready in his first full season, it is the White Sox. And with Beede being who he is right now and being a reliever, unlike some of those other guys, obviously Sale started as a reliever, moved to the starting role. Beede is always going to be a reliever. That's just so many factors that I think kind of work to his advantage.
Another guy to keep in mind there, by the way, you mentioned obviously Carson Fulmer, today's guest on the podcast, which we haven't even gotten a chance to tease yet, but Tyler Beede will join us, the top prospect in the San Francisco Giants organization, and yet another guy who is one of the Vandy boys. And we talk so often, it seems like, with guys who are at least in some way connected to Vanderbilt, even if they didn't go to Vanderbilt. We talked to Thomas Jones, who was committed to play there, ended up not going there for school. Another guy to keep an eye on because he's fallen off the radar a bit, Walker Buehler, who came out of the 2016 season as a 6th-ranked prospect in the Dodgers organization. Buehler had Tommy John surgery in August of 2015 after he was selected 24th overall in that year's first round. So last season combined, he only made 3 appearances between the rookie-level Arizona League and the Class A Midwest League. But healthy, really good stuff, mid to top rotation type stuff if he sticks as a starter, maybe a guy who could head to the bullpen, but another one that potentially could be a quick riser. It all depends on his health, obviously, but another one to keep in mind, and another Vanderbilt product who kind of follows that same mold.
Yeah, I don't think he quite fits that category of guy who's going to make the opening day roster.
Right,
But
right. No, not at all. But
no, but just to tie it into something that we've talked about a lot since the turn of the year was the Jose De Leon trade, and
right.
why would they be willing to give him up in a deal to the Rays for Logan Forsythe, who is a solid second baseman, but given what we think the ceiling might be for De Leon, that seems a little weird. I know there are people out there who think De Leon was maybe the third best pitching prospect in that Dodger system, behind Yadier Alvarez and behind Walker Buehler. So as much as we like to think De Leon was a premium prospect, they were dealing from kind of a situation of strength there. So yeah, Buehler kind of enters that equation, and we'll get to see more about how that's going to play itself out in 2017.
Strike two this week, Sam. The American League West is latest up in prospect projections for the 2017 season. Sam wrote that up. It is on the site at MILB.com right now. There are a couple of systems in that division that you don't think a lot about. The Angels obviously are an organization that is seemed somewhat rudderless for a little while. There are some risers now in the Angel system. It's certainly not the wasteland that it was last year, 2 years ago. There are some guys right now in that system who could be guys in that system. An interesting name that stuck out there, Alex Meyer. Keep that in mind. Sam will touch on that. But the Seattle Mariners, some interesting prospects there. Jerry Dipoto, we still haven't been traded as of yet, but it's always possible. The Texas Rangers, a system that has somewhat declined via trades and via graduations and that type of thing. But the Oakland Athletics have an interesting mix of guys. For a while now, I think we've been kind of waiting on when Franklin Barreto is finally going to break through. This year could be the year. But Jarrell Cotton gets a lot of love in the Steamer projections. Tell us about the AL West projections this year.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Cotton because he was the lead guy in this piece. I got to talk to him, which was a really good and fun conversation about what kind of happened last year. What's always happened with him. He's always been a really good fastball changeup guy. He's 5'11", 195. Was taken in the 20th round of the 2012 draft by the Dodgers and just became kind of transformed himself into a strikeout. I don't want to say demon, but a strikeout king of sorts. Always averaging, above a strikeout an inning everywhere he kind of went once he hit full season ball. And then this year he started out the year at AAA Oklahoma City, posted a 4.90 ERA, which didn't look all that great, but struck out 119 with only 32 walks and 97 1/3 innings. And the question with him has always been, okay, he's got these two pitches. He also has a cutter that's below average. He also has a curveball that he himself called loopy that he's trying to work to tighten up. So he's got the four pitches that can kind of work in the minor leagues. But with just being two pitches, being a guy who's 5'11", not exactly the tallest, the big burliest guy out there, most dominating in terms of presence, is he going to be looking at a future in relief? He gets traded to the A's in the deal that sends Rich Hill and Josh Reddick to the Dodgers. Goes to AAA Nashville. The second he almost gets to Nashville, they start working, the pitching coaches there, the managers there, they start working with him. He said what they focused on was the way he pitches out of the stretch. So his fastball and changeup, like I said, have always been really good. Lots of good movement on that changeup, really deceptive. But when he was pitching out of the stretch, both the cutter and the curveball just became flat. And, I didn't mention it before, but when he was at Oklahoma City, he gave up 17 home runs in those 97 1/3 innings. And he said, that's not good by any measure. He gave up the most homers of his life, he said, in 2016. So what they tried to do is they tried to give him, something to work with, a little bit more rhythm, try to, give a little bit more movement to that cutter and that curveball. He said it made, a world of difference. He now has more confidence with those pitches instead of just being a little bit predictable in terms of going with just the fastball and changeup. They can't sit on those two pitches anymore. They have to know other things are coming. He eventually did get 5 starts with the A's and posted a 2.15 ERA there with 23 strikeouts and only 4 walks in 29 1/3 innings. Again, his kind of bugaboo was the home run. He gave up 4 in his 5 starts, but he seems confident that that's going to kind of change. He said they were all solo bombs, so he's not exactly worried about that going forward. Steamer is a big believer in him. They projected him out to be worth 3.3 WAR, which is actually the most amount of WAR over 200 innings of any Oakland A's starter. That includes Sonny Gray, an all-star pitcher in the past who had a rough 2016, but a former ace. That includes Kendall Graveman. That includes a couple other guys that seem to be locked in. Sean Manaea, a friend of the podcast, had a pretty solid rookie year. Steamer thinks he's going to be even better next year. Or Steamer thinks Cotton is going to be better than even Manaea next year. So you have to kind of look at it and see, okay, well, what is it about this that seems to be working? I think the strikeouts help him a bunch. I think the fact that he did really well in the majors helped him a bunch. Strictly speaking, if you were to talk to anybody in the A's, they're going to say he's in the rotation conversation based on these projections, and not every team is going to use these projections. They have their own systems, and they also have, obviously, their own scouts and coaches. But he should be in conversation for that number 4 spot. I would have him penciled in there. If he has even a decent spring, I think you could even pen him in there, given his new package of pitches, given what he's shown at the major league level. It's tough to send him down after a run like he had last year after that call-up. He himself talked about, he's still focusing on that cutter and curveball. He even said he talked to Tom Gordon, who he's going to be compared to until probably he retires. Just a small pitcher, who has at times electric stuff. But is that, Tom Gordon was once a starter, became a reliever. Is that what Cotton is going to happen with Cotton? I don't think he thinks that. I don't think the A's think that. And the projection systems certainly don't think that. So he's going to be a really interesting one to watch. Right now, before MLB.com kind of updates things, they have him at number 14. He's going to go much higher than that, I think, when lists are updated later this offseason. But, Jarrell Cotton, if you're looking for a guy that maybe wasn't on your radar, entering the offseason, certainly entering the midpoint last year, I would kind of circle him and keep an eye on him entering 2017.
So you can go check out that story on the site right now, which leaves just one division before we are all wrapped up with the prospect projections for 2017. That's the National League West, and that'll be coming up next week from Sam.
Oh, one thing before we forget, because you did tease it, and I don't want to leave Angels fans hanging.
Good.
You did say.
I did. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, you said like Alex Meyer, and Sam
right.
will talk about that in a bit, and like we're going to completely ignore him. No, Alex Meyer is just an interesting case because I used to think of him as kind of the face of the Twins, of the pitching side of a really promising Twins staff, and he last year was just kind of a sweetener in a deal that just saw the Angels swap Ricky Nolasco and Hector Santiago, so his stock had really crashed because of control issues. But he made 5 starts with the Angels last year, posted a 3.93 FIP, averaged 10 strikeouts per 9 innings in that short stint. And given the way the Angels are kind of situated right now, kind of like Cotton, he could probably be in that. He's definitely going to be in that rotation discussion. He probably should be their number 4 or 5 starter, even with those control issues. It's kind of like Tyler Glasnow without as many strikeouts, I'd say, in terms of Meyer's immediate profile. I think Glasnow has, better control than Meyer has ever shown, better pitches than Meyer has ever shown. But they project him to have a 4.03 ERA, 4.19 FIP, and 8.9 strikeouts per 9 innings. So over 200 innings, that would translate to 2.2 WAR, which is very, is fairly solid. I mean, you get that out of a number 4 or 5 starter, you're going to be very happy. It's on him to prove that, he can succeed in that role as he did in that short stint last year with LA. But right now, I think things are looking up at a time when they were always looking down for Alex Meyer.
Strike 3 this week, Sam. We bring in, as I once referred to her and will still refer to her, our best buddy for the Show Before the Show podcast. MILB.com's own Kelsey Hennigan joins the show to discuss a feature that she had up on the site this week. Hi, Kelsey.
Hi, Tyler. My mom is a big fan of yours.
I know it.
She called me a best buddy last
because,
time.
And that's why,
shout out, Barb.
Hi, Kelsey's
Tyler Mom, Tyler Mom. Yeah, no, that's
Wow.
it. I'm just gonna leave that one there.
Okay.
I was gonna say Tyler Mom winning over the moms of America, but I think
Clearly.
yeah.
I'm everybody's favorite big dork on the podcast. This is why I'm a big hit with the moms. They think I'm non-threatening. So, Kelsey, tell us about this story. Really good feature up on the site right now, which deals with 2 generational no-hitters. And I'm going to let you take it from there.
Yeah, so at first I was really interested with the fact that Kyle threw a no-hitter in the minors, Kyle Drabeck, almost exactly 20 years after Doug fell 1 out shy of a no-hitter in the majors. And I just thought that was really interesting. But then the more I talked to them, and I talked to Christy Drabeck, Doug's wife, and Kyle's mom, and I just realized there's more to their story about just their relationship and how Kyle has transitioned from being a player who had a kid who had a major league dad to now being a player who has a kid.
Yeah, and what did you kind of learn about? Because I know when you started writing this, it was just going to be like, isn't this kind of cool? Like there were 2 no-hitters in the same family, or one a near no-hitter, and 1 actual no-hitter, and what kind of shared experience is that? But what did you kind of learn about what it's like to be a baseball family and trying to raise a family when you're on the road for 6 months a year?
Yeah, it's tough. It sounds like it's tough on both ends, which isn't that much of a surprise, but I'm sure everyone thinks it's glamorous when you see a little kid on the field in his dad's jersey, or he gets to be a bat boy during spring training. And it seems cool, but then you also have families that are separated for so many months. And so you could tell that both Doug felt bad that he wasn't around as much, and then also Kyle missed that presence, though his mom kind of filled in and played catch with them and made sure to take them to games when they could. So it's definitely a struggle on both ends.
Kelsey, what kind of an impression did you get from Kyle as to how it affected his makeup as a ball player to know what it takes from his father's perspective? I mean, we hear so much about, when guys have a brother that's been through the professional ranks, now they can kind of bounce things off of a contemporary who's at that level. But when you're a kid and you're looking up, experiencing that workload because of the way it affects your own life, I mean, how do you think that affected him when he got into pro ball on his own, knowing what his dad had been through?
I think he saw exactly how much hard work it took. I mean, everyone says, yeah, you got to work hard and follow your dreams. But I think to actually see his dad go to practice every day or work out or do whatever, what have you, I think that he saw how much it actually took and the sacrifices it took. But I think that just made him stronger and more prepared.
Kyle Drabeck, by the way, last season made 15 appearances, 11 of those starts for the AAA Reno Aces in the Pacific Coast League, and did also get 1 big league appearance with the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's currently a minor league free agent, but the story is up on the site right now. It's a great one about the former first-round pick in 2006 of the Philadelphia Phillies organization, Kyle Drabeck, and his father, Doug. What else you got coming up? Do you know what your next feature is going to be? This is like, Kelsey and I have talked about this, that this is one of our favorite times of year because we get to do the coolest stories away from the field. I mean, stuff that we kind of get to pick out and research and write about on our own. What are you ruminating for the next ones? I'm
thinking about a couple. Mark Appel was injured most of last year, so he's forming another comeback into spring. So I was thinking about checking in on him. Also, Brady Aiken, first overall pick twice, hasn't really been in the spotlight since, hasn't really played any big games aside from in the complex leagues. So I'm pretty curious to see what he's doing and also how he's handled all these transitions in his life.
She is Kelsey Hennigan, and by the way, you can find Kelsey on Twitter. She is at Kelsey with an IE_Hennigan, and the story is up at MILB.com right now, and more to come as we get into pitchers and catchers reporting and on into spring training and heading towards opening day. Great stuff, Kelsey. Thanks.
Thanks, Tyler.
That'll do it for 3 Strikes on this week's edition of the Show Before the Show podcast. And coming up, we head to the San Francisco Giants organization and the new top prospect in the Giants system, Tyler Beede, whose 2016 MLB pipeline photo showed him running the bases, but he's actually a pitcher, and he joins the show to talk about that and a whole lot more next. Well, we are headed to the Cactus League in very short order for 2017 spring training, and a guy who will be down there before any of the rest of us is the top prospect in the San Francisco Giants organization, Tyler Beede, who is headed to spring training coming up on Friday and coming out of a very fun week as well. We'll talk about that in a second. Tyler, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're great, man. You prefaced this by saying that your voice may be a little bit off because, as we just learned right before we jumped on, you were at the Super Bowl on Sunday, and you're a Patriots fan. How was that?
It was incredible, man. It was, as my buddies were texting me from back home saying they were jealous that they weren't there, it was just as great in person. But, I wasn't doing much screaming aside from yelling in the first three quarters angrily. But then the fourth quarter came, and it was just absolutely nuts. Just being surrounded by Patriots fans. It was one of the best sporting experiences I've ever had. And, hopefully we can get, one of those types of experiences in a World Series coming up with San Francisco.
Well, one of the things I got to just jump in real quick, because as being the lone non-Patriots fan on the podcast, the lone non-Massachusetts guy of this tripod that we have here for this segment, I was thrilled for the first three quarters. For you, being there, going to a Super Bowl, and all of a sudden your team is down 25 in the third quarter. Like, was there a time when you were like, what did I waste this money for? Like, what was it like at 28-3? What was going through your mind?
I wish I had the Patriots mentality, and I could tell you, man, I was believing the whole time. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I was like feeling bad for my dad because he got us tickets, and I was like, man. My dad was ready to bounce after the third quarter, and I was like, you know what? Let's just stick around. Yeah, it was tough, man. I was like, dang, this is the Super Bowl that we're paying to see. But then, Tom Brady does what Tom Brady does, and he basically makes people hate him a little bit more, and Patriots fans love him even more. So it was amazing.
Yeah, just save that ticket.
Yeah, exactly. That is true. You got to put that be an eternal scrapbook item.
Pop's framing it as we speak, so we'll have that forever.
There you go.
Well, Tyler, let's talk about the offseason a little bit, because heading into to 2017, last year, 24 appearances for Richmond, really, really good season for you. And now this year, you're kind of on that doorstep of really big things. Since everything wrapped up in September, you're headed to Scottsdale on Friday. What have the last few months looked like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So just been getting ready for the season. I've been in Houston, Texas, where my fiance is from, for the whole offseason. Working out at Fairchild Sports Performance, actually, where Mark Melanson and Hunter Pence are working out. So just been able to kind of build a relationship with those guys over the last few months and, get my arm and throw in shape and ready to go. So just been throwing bullpens and really getting my body in shape for a long, healthy season.
Yeah, and at what point do you start throwing? I mean, everybody's kind of got their own program going in terms of when they kind of get geared up, and you don't want to waste bullets, that kind of thing. But at what point do you start throwing in the off season, and what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I try to take about 2 to 3 months off every off season if I'm afforded those 2 to 3 months, and I start throwing December 10th, or I did this year, and I just think it's a good time just to get the arm going. Nothing too crazy at first, just getting out to 60 feet and really just kind of lobbing it, getting it there. And then from there, just gradually moving back and gradually building up that intent to where I got off a mound, I want to say January 15th. So, really just making sure that I'm not doing anything too crazy, but that I'm also, ready, prepared, and feeling strong for spring training when those bullpens, live BPs, and then live game action, comes around.
Yeah, and before you mentioned, working out with Melanson and Pence and, getting to know some of the guys, obviously Melanson's a new guy in terms of the Giants, but, last year I think you got, an invite to spring training, a non-roster invite. You get another one this year. What are you expecting about this second time around that's going to be different, or how did that last one last year kind of set you up for this time around?
Yeah, I just think the more you're around those guys and the more you're around that environment, the more comfortable you get. And I'm a guy who thrives the more comfortable I am, and I think the Giants do a great job of making you feel at home, making you feel welcome, and making you feel part of the group as soon as you get there. So I don't think that was a huge adjustment last year, but I think going into this second big league camp, I'm able to recognize a few more guys and just feel more comfortable being around them and not be as starstruck. I wouldn't say I walked in the room and it was, jaw dropped to the floor, but it is an adjustment being around those types of guys and really understanding that they're pulling for you and they want to, help you out, give you advice wherever, you may need it. So I think this year I really want to go in there and compete. I threw 2 innings last year, and I think I'll have a chance to throw some more this year. So I want to go out there and really just be myself, go out there, have some fun, and hopefully can contribute to some games in spring and then have a chance of, doing that during the season as well.
Tyler was a 14th overall selection back in 2014, and since then, some AZL time in 2014, Salem Kaiser in 2014, 2015, 2 levels, Class A advanced and Double A. And what I want to hear from you, Tyler, is the way 2016 stacked up in Double A versus that first taste of it in 2015. You go out 2 seasons ago and make 13 starts for the Richmond Flying Squirrels, an ERA of 5.23. Take the lessons from that, apply them last year. ERA drops to 2.81, a fantastic season for you. What was the biggest thing that you think you learned in that first tour through the Eastern League that you were able to apply last year and really turn it into such a breakout season?
I was really, a completely different guy from 2015 to 2016. I think just in terms of body and where I was at mentally, I put on 30 pounds from the 2015 off season going into the 2016 season, just because going through that season in Richmond at the end, I just wasn't as strong as I needed to be, and my stuff wasn't where it needed to be, where I was just, I wasn't hanging in games as long as I needed to. So, the biggest difference for me was my body and, my arm strength. I was throwing a lot harder. I had gotten my stuff back to the level it was at in college, and also had taken the things that I had, worked on in 2015, adding a sinker, adding a cutter, and really putting that into my game to kind of make it more well-rounded and to throw more strikes and compete, knowing that my stuff is good enough to get those guys out, really going with the mentality that, I'm going to challenge those hitters, very talented hitters in Double A, but go up against, my stuff against their bat. And I think that was the big difference for me, being able to stay strong and keep that weight on for a whole, 24 starts, whatever it was, pitching, with, throwing even harder at the end of the year than I did at the beginning. So it was a good off season to build a great foundation that allowed me to stay strong and healthy for that full season last year.
Tyler, one of the guys I want to ask you about, just while we're on the subject of being in Richmond, is Christian Arroyo, who was the top prospect in the Giants system coming out of last year. You guys have since flopped. You're 1 and he's 2 for the pipeline rankings coming into 2017, which I know you guys don't pay attention to, but nerds like us do. But Christian Arroyo starts last year at 20 years old in the Eastern League and goes out, puts together a really, really good season. He turned 21 back in May, but he bats .274, .316, .373, plays 3 positions defensively. A guy that I know the people on the player development side with the Giants are really, really impressed with just how his instincts are and the way that he plays the game, and that it in no way befits somebody of, since his time in the system, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. What was it like being around somebody who is that young but that advanced and getting a chance to watch him on a nightly basis?
It was amazing, and it's fun to have him play behind me and pick me up on multiple plays. And he's a guy who has high makeup. He's a great guy, and he's a hardworking kid too. And you see young guys oftentimes really just go through the motions and not necessarily understand what it takes to get to that next level. Just from being in college, watching a guy like Dansby Swanson, you see the reps that he puts in pregame. I compare him a lot to Arroyo just because of the way he works pregame, the way he works during the week. And during practices, you see that he really cares about, becoming better, becoming a better fielder, becoming a better hitter. And he's always watching tape. He's always trying to analyze his swing and also try to get better watching other guys' swings as well. And I got the chance to be locker mates with him the whole last year. And that's just the way he's built. He wants to be a great player, and he wants to be a contributor up there in San Francisco and understand what it takes. And I'm lucky enough to have been able to play with him for the last 2.5 years, in parts of 3 seasons. So I know he's already made tremendous strides from the few years that I played with him, and he's only getting better. The more he gets older and the more reps he's taken. So it's a bright future for him for sure, and I'm looking forward to playing with him for a long time.
All right, I kind of want to jump back a couple of years in terms of your professional baseball story, going even far back as 2011. Tyler mentioned you were taken with the 14th overall pick in 2014 by the Giants, but in 2011 you were taken 21st overall by the Blue Jays out of Lawrence Academy in Groton, Mass. You're actually the second guy we've talked to, Phil Bickford being the other one, who was drafted by the Blue Jays, ended up signing with the Giants in the first round. What was that like going through that process in 2011, and why did you end up deciding to go to Vandy instead of going pro that early?
Yeah, it was both a very incredible experience and very humbling experience. Really, proud moment, realizing a dream coming true, getting drafted in the first round. It was something that I'll never forget just the moment itself, being around my friends and family and really celebrating it, but humbling at the same time, really getting a new taste of what the business side of baseball is all about. And you don't really get exposed to it from, draft meetings or sitting down with scouts. They tell you bits and pieces of it, but when you're thrown into the fire and you really get to see what it's all about, you have a new appreciation for really what players, kind of deal with throughout, contract negotiations, throughout a draft process. And, I was lucky enough to be offered, a high amount of money. But, for me, what was tough and what's tough for people to understand from my perspective is how much I valued Vanderbilt, how much I valued the education, the coaching staff, and the experience that I would gain from playing in the SEC for 3 to 4 years. And, I think looking back at it, it's easy to say, I really want to go to Vandy, win a national championship, and I think I'd be drafted in the first round again. That's the way it worked out, luckily and thankfully, because of the big man upstairs. But I think just the adversity that I was able to go through and all the experiences I had is really priceless. But the decision itself, it was a very hard decision. It wasn't something that I just kind of blew off and said, that's definitely not, something that interests me. Playing professional baseball has always been a dream of mine. And when the Blue Jays made that offer to me, it was very difficult. But at the same time, I knew deep down in my heart, how much I wanted to stick with that Vanderbilt decision and how much I valued it. And looking back at it, knowing Tim Corbin was on that other side of the decision to go to Vandy, it was the best thing that I've ever done in my life. And, it was tough, but I thank, Vanderbilt every day for that opportunity. And it was an incredible 3 years.
Yeah, and we've talked to a couple of Vandy boys on the podcast. We had Matt Bushman, we had Dansby on before. Everybody talks about the kind of development and how important it was to be there. I want to kind of go a different route with you, just because this has always kind of struck me, and I've never got a chance to ask anybody about this. We mentioned you're a Mass guy. Mike Yastrzemski, he was a Mass guy. Kevin Zomick is a Mass guy. Adam Ravenel is a Massachusetts guy. What is it about that pipeline? I mean, there's no natural connection there. Did they just do a really good job of scouting the Bay State or something? What led you to Vanderbilt and so many guys from Massachusetts there at the same time?
Right. So like I was saying, the big appeal is Tim Corbin. I mean, he's a guy originally from New Hampshire. I want to say Wolfboro, New Hampshire, who is always up in that area and just enjoys being around those New England athletes, because he finds a very valuable asset in a guy who hasn't been burnt out from baseball, burnt out from throwing too many innings, like a guy from, a warmer weather state may be, just because he's throwing all year round. And whereas we didn't have the opportunity to do that with the snow and cold weather, things like that. So he really enjoyed the aspect of a guy from New England who played multiple sports, but also wasn't burnt out. And he also would always talk about the toughness of a guy from Massachusetts that brought to the table, just because we always felt like we had a chip on our shoulder to prove like we were, good enough to compete against those Cali boys, Georgia boys, Florida, Texas guys from those states, because Massachusetts guys never really got enough credit. And so he was always willing to bring those guys to the SEC. And I think just from an early stage, guys are always interested in going to a warmer state to play baseball, especially in the SEC. And Corb's always did a great job of selling what that university brings to the table, both educationally and both athletically. So, Corbs is one of the biggest reasons why guys go to Vanderbilt, and I think it's pretty obvious through the years.
Tyler, I got a chance to watch a video on the old YouTube in which you were hanging out in a hall on campus and asking fellow Vandy students just how much they knew about the Vanderbilt baseball program, several of whom you asked if they knew who Tyler Beede was, and they said some variation of the name sounds familiar or no while you were standing right next to them. But one girl you asked, would you turn down $2.5 million to come to Vanderbilt, which you, of course, did, as we covered a minute ago, and she said yes. Do you believe that girl?
A couple people said yes, and I was I guess I was hoping people would say yes, but I really didn't think so. So yeah, I did. I don't know. I guess I did believe her, and I think that's what you get when you go to Vanderbilt. You start to understand that if you get a degree from Vanderbilt, I guess potentially you could make, that kind of money down the road. And I'm no mechanical engineer, but there are some smart students at Vanderbilt, and I'm sure they were like, thinking well beyond that amount of money that they would make in their life. So, I wish all the best to those people, but I was happy that they agreed with me. And that was one of the funniest videos that I had made. I don't know how it turned out that good, but too funny for sure.
It's pretty great, and it's up. You can find it on YouTube. And also in that video, I wanted to ask you about your music career, because you asked a handful of people if they had ever heard any music by Young Beede. What's been going on with the rap career?
Yeah, absolutely. So I hadn't, released any songs up until about a month ago. I released my first song off of a new album that I'm releasing here in the next couple of weeks, called The Change Up. And I released it's called Top of the World. There's a song on Spotify and on SoundCloud. If you just search, Young Beede or Tyler Beede, Top of the World. And I'm releasing an EP in a couple weeks. That'll feature 5 songs that I made in the last year. And it's nothing too crazy, but something I'm certainly passionate about, that I just feel like people may be encouraged to hear some positive songs about where my life is at, my faith, and really how much I love baseball and how much I love my family and friends and stuff like that. So really just a positive outlook on my music, and really just trying to put my voice into some unique rhymes.
Tyler, one more thing on the Vandy topic, and we've asked this, to basically every Vandy guy that we've talked to on the show, but it's always cool for us to get the perspective of what it is like for you guys to watch your classmates and former teammates from the program there. I mean, you obviously won a College World Series in 2014. You get to watch all these guys go off now and do big things. And when you see, the Carson Fulmers and the Dansby Swansons breaking into the big leagues, the success that you've had, the success that Walker Buehler has had coming back from an injury, what is that like now? Because for those of us on the outside of it, it's very neat to see a program that generates talent like that and these massive classes of top prospects that come in. But you guys get to be on the inside. I mean, you remember what it's like riding buses and going on flights and, wearing your team polos together, traveling around the SEC. What is that like now as you're kind of entering the dawn of your professional careers?
Yeah, it's really awesome. It's a testament to Vandy and how well they prepared us for this level. And, I think I've been surprised with, how quickly I've developed, obviously thanks to the Giants development staff, but to watch guys like Fulmer and Dansby, and the list does go on, even a guy like Tyler Ferguson, who, came out of the draft and wasn't taken as highly as we thought he would have been taken early on in his sophomore year. Those guys developed so quickly, and it's because of the things that they learned at Vanderbilt. And whether it be a guy like Fulmer, who had a ton of success, or a guy like, even myself or Ferguson, who ran into some adversity and really had to learn through those ups and downs, come into pro ball and really come into their own and really find a good rhythm. And even guys like Swanson, who are in the big leagues really soon, they're representing the school well, they're representing themselves well and their family well and that organization well. And that's just a testament to Vanderbilt, to Coach Corbin, and the life lessons, the character traits that we learned going through college. And the way that these guys are able to implement it as soon as they get into pro ball is very impressive. And I think it's just one of the more appealing things and reasons to go to Vanderbilt, because of the success that you can have right when you get into pro ball. It's not a long process for some of these kids like Fulmer and Swanson, but you can tell going to 3 years, 4 years at Vandy really helps pay off in the back end.
All right, we'll pivot to 2017 and leave you off on this one. You're probably, like you said, you're coming in to compete this spring. Not just a new face around spring training. You're going to be one of the more familiar faces there in the second spring. You're probably headed to AAA in the Pacific Coast League. If you were to kind of hound on one thing you're going to be kind of working on this year to make that next step to potentially debut with the Giants at some point this summer, what are you kind of honed in on to make that happen?
Yeah, just staying consistent and really just being myself. I think the more simple I am, the things are simplified out there on the mound, the better I am. For me, it's all about competing in the zone and not worrying about missing bats, but just missing barrels, whether it be getting ground ball outs, being efficient, pitching deep into a game. That's where I think any starting pitcher can help an organization. They want to have their starting pitchers, all 5, boost around 1,000 innings for the team. And, if I'm a guy who can stay healthy for a whole season, pitch 200 innings and help contribute to a team, I think that's, most beneficial and going to help contribute to any organization. And so, for me, I just want to go out there and establish my fastball and be a guy who can, pitch deep into a ball game and put our team in a position to win, and trust that bullpen at the back end with Derek Law, Strickland, and obviously the newly acquired Mark Melanson, and let them do their thing at the back end.
Sacramento and San Francisco, the next steps ahead in the career of Tyler Beede, who joins us on this week's edition of the Show Before the Show podcast. And Tyler, congratulations on all the success so far, and best of luck in 2017. And enjoy the trip down to Scottsdale and, getting a chance to know that you were the best Super Bowl comeback of all time. Nice work.
I appreciate it, Sam, and thank you, Tyler. I appreciate you guys, and thank you for having me on.
On the heels of Tyler Beede, one of the Vandy boys who is rocking things at the minor league level, we transition to the business of baseball and our good pal Benjamin Hill. There's going to be a topic of conversation in this week's edition of our discussion with Ben, in which we talk about Bob Ross. I thought about bringing the segment in with my best Bob Ross voice, but I wouldn't be able to do it justice, so never mind. Hi, Ben.
Hi, I can't do it justice either, and
Nobody
I'm not going
can.
to try either. And
just
this
have
is
to-
going to be a podcast.
It's on Hulu now, by the way.
Wait, I think Sam has
No,
a dissenting view. I think he just told me he's going to do his
Sam's
Bob
gonna
Ross.
do it.
No,
Okay.
you just have to think of happy little trees the whole time, or happy little clouds. Just happy little anything. That's all.
No, but there's a thing that goes. It gives a lot of us very distinct ASMR sensations. But I can't do it. I can't do it. I just need to listen to it. But apparently,
It gives me an idea right now. Can a minor league team please do an ASMR theme night?
Oh my god!
and would you just have somebody speaking in very soothing tones over the PA system?
Now batting. I can't even do it right. It has to be a little husky. But for those who don't know,
Somebody do
ASMR
it.
is, how would you qualify ASMR? It's talking in gentle, soothing tones as a form of relaxation.
Sorta. It stands for the full acronym is Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. But basically, you start feeling like a tingling sensation when you hear like a soothing voice or a sound or something like that. People who whisper. They're actually, if you go on YouTube,
Yeah,
and
there's
search
all sorts of
ASMR. There's people have made like an industry out of it.
Yeah,
Bob Ross,
yeah.
that dude was onto it before anybody knew.
Yeah, he was an ASMR predecessor. He knew that was going to be a thing before the internet, before...
He was the original ASMR hipster.
Yeah, he really was. Why are we talking about Bob Ross?
We're going to
Tyler?
talk about Bob Ross.
Why? I forget.
Why don't we just talk about it now? So, according to one Benjamin Hill at bensbiz.mlblogs.com, this will start us off in our conversation with Ben this week. The Daytona Tortugas unveiling their promo schedule this week. And perhaps the most fascinating element on that schedule is a Bob Ross bobblehead, which the Tortugas will be giving away. He is a Daytona Beach native, and of course the show The Joy of Painting, which at least Ben and I are old enough, I don't know about Sam, but old enough to remember when it was actually on TV, like with new episodes. But Bob Ross, you can't look at Bob Ross and not smile or get happy. I can't imagine there have been many like painter themed bobbleheads.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, although if I got closer to the middle or the bottom of my head, I could probably think of a few. But Bob Ross was born in Daytona Beach and lived in that area. He grew up in that area and has a lifelong Florida roots. He passed away in the mid-'90s, unfortunately. And the Daytona Tortugas, who have never given away a bobblehead in their franchise history somehow, are breaking that streak and giving away a Bob Ross bobblehead. Is the first bobblehead in franchise history. And they're also celebrating Guy Harvey during the season. Guy Harvey's going to come to the ballpark, and they're going to wear Guy Harvey themed jerseys. And I know the Pensacola Blue Wahoos did that last year. And this is how I learn about art these days, through what minor league teams are doing. Guy Harvey, I guess he does a lot of aquatic theme painting, so he makes sense for some of these Florida teams. Very vivid, that man is. Guy Harvey, very vivid artist.
And just so we're clear, we don't know what the Bob Ross bobblehead is going to look like yet. They haven't announced anything, right?
No, they've not announced an image, so I wrote about it on the blog, but did not have an image to use. And one of the reasons I focused the Daytona Tortugas on the blog is, in addition to the Bob Ross bobblehead, they announced their entire promo schedule via a parody of We Didn't Start the Fire. And I just thought that was hilarious because I loved that song as a kid, and it's kind of ambitious and wildly stupid to create a parody of We Didn't Start the Fire, just naming your theme nights and days of the week promos and extolling the virtues of the value of your minor league franchise. So I love it.
So the Bob Ross bobblehead, which is one of the more unique ones on the minor league calendar for 2017, is coming July 15th, the first ever bobblehead in Daytona Tortugas franchise history. And I don't know, I am very interested to see what exactly that looks like, because so often we see the picture of Bob Ross and it's him. I mean, the hair obviously is going to be a part of it, but is he going to have an easel? He's going to be painting something in the bobblehead. Like, I'm really intrigued by this one. There's so many different ways you could go.
Yeah, you know what would be really cool if he has the easel, but it's blank.
Oh,
like,
and then
you're the one who's supposed to
thing.
paint a Bob Ross painting on the bobblehead.
Look at you, Sam.
I'm
I
just
like it.
giving out free ideas.
I like it. It's pretty good. Pretty good stuff. I would not be one to paint it. I would just have to throw the bobblehead away because I have zero artistic talent. So
I do as well.
So with that in mind, Daytona making a splash for the 2017 season. A lot of teams did that in 2016, and Ben is working on a story right now of some of the teams that shattered their own records in attendance in 2016, and maybe some ideas as to how and why that happened. It's a really interesting cross-section of teams, basically at every level and every type of market in the minor leagues. Tell us about this story, Ben.
Well, the specific qualifier I used, first of all, this story was inspired by the Number Tamer, a man by the name of David Cronheim, Cronheim. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. I have spoken to him in the past, but it's been a few years. But David does a website called the Number Tamer, and every year he releases attendance reports for major and minor league baseball that are extremely well done and extremely thorough. So he just finished his minor league report for the 2016 season. That's at numbertamer.com, and it's available as a PDF for free. And he's very free with the information he has. As long as you credit him, you can use that information for your own edification and promotional purposes. So I was looking through the Number Tamer's report, and he had this interesting tidbit that there were 10 minor league cities or teams who set attendance records in 2016, not just for the current franchise, but in the entire history of that city's minor league baseball history. And the 10 teams are Asheville, Biloxi, Columbia, Fort Wayne, Visalia, Tennessee, South Bend, Charleston, Johnson City, and Pulaski. So, Tyler, as you said, definitely an interesting cross-section of teams. Columbia, that's the Columbia Fireflies. They opened a new ballpark this year. Not a big surprise that they set an all-time attendance record in the city of Columbia. Biloxi, same thing. This was the first year where they played a full season in their ballpark, and Biloxi hadn't had a minor league team since the 20s. So teams like that are not very much a surprise. But then when you kind of get into why are the Charleston River Dogs setting attendance records in the year 2016? Why are the Johnson City Cardinals setting attendance records in the year 2016? Why Visalia? I kind of found it interesting. I reached out to all the teams and got responses from 9 of them. And I'm not going to say which team did not respond. That would be unprofessional. But I incorporate as much as I can the team's own responses, obviously, into why they are having as much success now as they've had in the past. And a lot of factors do go into play. And I think it's something that people enjoy looking at and analyzing, and above all, getting in touch with me, telling me which teams I neglected because they didn't quite read the parameters of the article correctly.
So which of these teams kind of had the most unique reason, do you think, for why their attendance spiked so well in 2016?
It's a good question. I think Asheville's unique in that the Taurus name goes back over 100 years. McCormick Field, has been massively renovated through the years, but that dates back over 90 years. So they're not a new entity. And Brian DeWine, the team president, said, we increased our marketing budget and we dedicate it to educating fans. They know about the brand, they know about us, but educating fans as much as possible about when we are actually playing. So he said a big part of their success right now is increasing that marketing budget and doing like 4-second IDs on TV. Those like really quick commercials, having digital billboards saying when there's a game, and just amping up those efforts, because everyone might know who you are, but the casual fan might not really be paying attention. So I thought that was kind of an interesting one, that they're setting franchise records in an old ballpark in the year 2017 or 2016. And I think demographics sometimes have something to do with that. That was the case in Charleston, I think, where the tourism base of that city is huge, and you also have people moving there to actually live there. A lot of transplants businesses have moved to that area, and there's Boeing and there's Volvo and there's businesses such as that employ people in the area. There's military bases. So I could go on, and each, just like any aspect of minor league baseball, so many different factors. But I thought it was kind of interesting, this cross section of teams and ballparks of all shapes and sizes and ages, are all experiencing attendance records for very different reasons.
That story is coming to the site, and it brings us from a promotion to teams that are capitalizing on promotions and such to yet another promotion. And for 2017, the Reading Fightin' Phils have put themselves on the map for August 7th, which will be their 16th annual morning game. It'll be played at 9:35 a.m., and the Fightin' Phils will be taking the field that day as the Reading Whoopies, and they'll be taking on the Akron Rubber Ducks. Now, don't get this confused with the former minor league hockey team, the Macon Whoopies in Macon, Georgia. This is actually about the dessert, the whoopie, the whoopie pie, right, is what it's known as. I don't think I've ever had a whoopie pie, but it's a Pennsylvania thing. It's like chocolate and then cream and then chocolate. It's like a cake, but it's another food-themed minor league identity coming forth.
Yeah, that's what it is, and that's what we keep seeing. I think started with the Fresno tacos, the Lehigh Valley cheesesteaks. We had the Scranton Wilkes-Barre pierogies last year, and the Staten Island cannolis. We're going to see more and more teams do this, dedicate one night of the promo schedule to a themed jersey celebrating a local cuisine. And Reading, PA Dutch country, they have the Whoopies and separate logo, jersey. Obviously, they'll have plenty of whoopie pie on hands. And it really is. It's like an ice cream sandwich, but just whipped cream, heavy cream in the middle, and kind of like cakes on either end.
I like to think of it as like a cake version of an Oreo.
Yeah,
that's true, but a lot bigger. Yeah.
I think that's a good way to put it. And one, I'm one of the few individuals out there who read the press releases and try to glean details as opposed to just a tweet where like, that's awesome, that's why I love minor league baseball, and that's why I'll never think about this again. I try to, see what the teams have really, how they thought this through. And I like that the Reading, well, on this day, they'll be the Reading Whoopies, the Fightin' Phils on any other day. They're giving away seat cushions as part of this game, because that way they can be giving away, they're the Whoopies and they're giving away seat cushions. So they're whoopie cushions, They're not actual whoopee cushions. They're actually seat cushions, but they're the Whoopies. They're giving away cushions. You have the connection there to a time-honored gag flatulence prank device. Well, I don't even know how you categorize it. I used to have them all the time. I'm a big fan of whoopee cushions. And I'm a big fan of the Reading Phillies Fightin' Phils morning game, which has been a long tradition for the team. And, they really do it to give senior citizens as well as night shift workers and anyone else whose general schedule is not amenable to to typical game times. They have a 9:35 a.m. game, and it's not a school day. It's not tons of kids screaming about SpongeBob SquarePants. This is more of a kind of let's get the seniors and the working class of the people who work shifts that really don't align with baseball. And having an annual promo for that, I think, is a cool idea. And now they're really blowing it out with this whole whoopee thing.
Two notes. There's a really great logo that Reading designed for this, which is a, quote, joyful whoopie pie mascot. He's wearing a red Fightin' Phils hat with the old school R logo, and he's also carrying a flag that states the word whoopee on it, as the press release said. Secondly, another interesting note in this press release, quote, for the special morning game, all fans that enter the stadium before 8 a.m. will receive a free hot dog and coffee. Which seems like a strange combination.
That is a little strange. I'm not even going to defend that one, but
I think it's just combining morning and baseball.
I guess.
What do you think of in the morning? I think of coffee. What do you think about baseball? I don't think hot dogs at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I don't know how it would go with the coffee. I don't know. Whatever. Let's have somebody write in and tell us.
Why can't you have a hot dog in the morning?
You could. Is it a sandwich, though?
That's why.
Is it a sandwich in the morning?
Nope. I'm not getting into this conversation.
Benjamin Hill is on Twitter. He's at Ben's Biz, and the blog is bensbiz.mlblogs.com. Check out the story on team attendance. I know a whole lot of minor league front offices around the game will be doing the same and wondering how they can capture that same magic for 2017 and beyond. I'm looking forward to it, Ben. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. You will.
Big thanks to the top prospect in the San Francisco Giants organization, Tyler Beede. He is number 88 on MLB.com's pre-2017 top 100, and his young teammate Christian Arroyo, by the way, is number 89. So they're the new 1-2, and it was Arroyo who was at the head of the organization coming out of 2016, but Beede takes over as the top prospect in the Giants system, and a big thanks to him for joining us on the show today. We have some breaking-ish news, although by the time you hear this, it'll be a day after we recorded, so not really. But we wanted to give you our thoughts on this from one Jeff Passan at Yahoo Sports. Quote, Major League Baseball plans on testing a rule change in the lowest levels of the minor leagues this season that automatically would place a runner on second base at the start of extra innings, a distinct break from the game's orthodoxy that nonetheless has wide-ranging support at the highest levels of the league. Sources familiar with the plan told Yahoo Sports. A derivation of the rule has been used in international baseball for nearly a decade and will be implemented in the World Baseball Classic this spring. MLB's desire to test it in the rookie-level Gulf Coast League and Arizona League this summer is part of an effort to understand its wide in-game consequences and whether its implementation at higher levels and even the major leagues may be warranted. This is a rule that came about for the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the last time that baseball was in the Olympics, in which the IOC basically said, we want these games shorter. And baseball's governing body back then, the International Baseball Federation, came up with this tiebreaker rule. Now, I believe its original implementation was runners at first and second. This rule, according to this report from Yahoo, would just be a runner at second base to start extra innings. But it is something that has been used in international baseball since. I know it's used in certain international leagues. I know the Australian Baseball League has used this to break ties, I believe, from the 11th inning on in games down there. And it's something that's still used by the now international governing body of baseball. The forerunner to that was the International Baseball Federation, now called the World Baseball Softball Confederation. It's used for extra inning games in that organization's competitions. I did the broadcast for the Under-23 World Cup back in September, and it was used there. And it gets a little dicey because you can have games that go to extra innings at 0-0 and 1-1, and all of a sudden they end up as 6-5 games because when you start in those cases, runners at first and second, nobody out, all of a sudden things can get nuts. This, I'll give you my initial gut check reaction. I love this idea for the minor leagues. I don't think it'll ever be implemented at the major leagues. I don't think it should be implemented at the major leagues. But at the minor league level, guys are playing to get better. The competition in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter the way that it does at the major league level. So if you have something that's going to bring about games being closed in 12 innings rather than in 18 innings, and you're avoiding the prospect of injuries at that stage, you're avoiding fatigue for guys who are already going to be extremely fatigued with the schedules of minor league baseball teams, I'm all for it at the minor league level. Also, I once had to broadcast a 23-inning game solo a year after broadcasting a 20-inning game as the second game of a day-night doubleheader solo. So I did 29 innings in one day at that point. So I'm all for it just from the radio guy's perspective.
Yeah, so it all comes down to you, Tom.
Yeah, basically. It all comes back to me, as it should. But no, I mean, we were kind of talking about this before we started recording this segment. In the interest of keeping the games shorter, not risking the injuries, and being able to cut something out of an already exhausting schedule for these guys, in the minor leagues, I'm totally fine with this. At the major league level, I don't think it'll be implemented. I don't think it should be implemented. But this is fine with me at the minor leagues.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of enter it with an open mind. I think so much talk now in sports is about how do you handle extra time, extra innings, overtime, whatever. We're all trying to be finicky with it. I don't think baseball has an issue with this. This seems like a weird thing to be, we talk a lot about, baseball is a long game and should they be implementing pitch clocks and they should be cutting down commercial breaks and yada, yada, yada. And that's fine. And, I agree, you want to keep people paying attention. I don't think extra innings are necessarily the problem there. I mean, listen, again, open mind. We'll see what happens in the GCL and the AZL if this actually goes through. That's what Joe Torre said, talking to Yahoo Sports, just said, let's see what it looks like. We're going to try it out at the GCL, AZL. very few people are paying attention there anyways. Nobody's going to open up an AZL box score and say this is fraudulent because the guy scored from second base on the first hit of the 10th inning. That it's all fine. We'll see. Maybe it'll win me over. If the goal here is to get it to the major leagues to cut down game time, this seems like a weird way of going about it and kind of an unnecessary way of going about it. If all it is to keep minor leaguers from staying until 1 o'clock in the morning and then having to take a bus to Fort Wayne, at 3 in the morning, fine, good. Like let's just keep it at that, and that's perfectly okay. It's when we start to think about stretching it out and pushing it as high as it can go that I kind of cringe a little bit. But the GCL, the AZL, I'm sure we'll see this probably in the AFL because the AFL is the ultimate kind of experimental league in terms of Major League Baseball wanting to see things put into practice. I'm sure we'll see that happen, come the fall, and we'll have to see how it kind of evens out. A couple years ago, I did a story, when the pitch clocks first went in about whether it cut down game time over 9-inning games. And I think that's always the barometer we're using here, or the denominator. It's that it has to be for a 9-inning game because that's what we can control. We can't control, if somebody plays a 23-inning game, that's going to make the game seem longer on average because you're including 23 innings amongst 9 innings. So it depends on the data they're looking at. I don't know. I have some follow-up questions on this. But, it's the GCL, it's the AZL. Not a lot of people are paying attention there. We have to. It's our job. I'm sure we'll do some follow-up stories on this over the summer, specifically for draft picks who are getting thrown into pro ball and then all of a sudden have this new rule they have to deal with. How are they going to kind of handle that? But, the 2017 season, I think, just got a new little wrinkle that we weren't expecting.
There is a quote that Baseball Twitter kind of freaked out about when this story was posted to Yahoo Sports, and it is from Joe Torre, who is now Major League Baseball's chief baseball officer and a strong supporter of this idea, this concept, this rule being tested out in the AZL and the GCL. Quote, "Let's see what it looks like. It's not fun to watch when you go through your whole pitching staff and wind up bringing a utility infielder to pitch," which I think almost everybody would disagree with because I think that's one of the most entertaining things.
It's not fun if you're like.
It's not fun if you're a manager.
No, but I definitely remember where I was the day I covered Bill Hall pitching a game, the Red Sox, and him telling Jason Varitek, "Hey man, I have a curveball," and Jason Varitek walking away and saying, "I'm putting down one finger and one finger only." That stuff is fun. Let's not spin it to be, it's not fun for the fans. It is fun for the fans, but it's not fun for teams that invest millions of dollars in their pitchers only to see them lose a game on a guy who hasn't pitched since the 7th grade.
It's going to be interesting, so keep an eye glued to MILB.com for more on that and all kinds of stuff as we get set for the final run-up to pitchers and catchers reporting next week and spring training games opening in less than 2 weeks. I can't wait. Sam's already picking out dates for when he is going to head to Florida. Josh Jackson and I will be in Arizona as it looks right now, probably the second week in March, and it's my favorite time of the year. Spring training, I cannot get enough of spring training. I'm so excited.
Yeah, and let's kind of get ahead of this a little bit. If you're going to be down in Florida or Arizona in the middle of March, let us know. We'd love to see you, love to chat, love to talk prospects with you. Anything else, love to talk the podcast. We don't have shirts like Ben does, so we can't promise you anything special like that. And we will be eating our own food, so keep your filthy paws off of them. But it's always fun to meet people out at the park. And if you're there, we'll release our schedules once we have everything planned. And if you're there at the time, let us know, and we'll try to meet up.
Do it. Get in touch with this podcast at MILB.com is the email address. Sam is on Twitter. He's at Sam Dykstra, MILB, and I am at Tyler Mon. Once again, a big thanks to Tyler Beede and a big thanks to Benjamin Hill. And until next week, we get to talk about some actual on-field baseball news. Enjoy the debate over tiebreaker rules and extra innings in the low minors, and we'll talk to you in 7 days.